Hi, my name is Tiffany LaTrice, and I am the cover gem of the September 2024 issue of the Bold Maven magazine.
What comes to mind when you think of gemstones?
What comes to mind when I think of gemstones is actually my birthstone. I was born on December 1st, and blue is my favorite color. And I also love the ocean. I love how freeing and liberating it is. I love how it just makes you live in flow and in harmony and whatever life throws your way. And it doesn't allow you to resist it. When you're in the ocean, you almost have to surrender to life. And I think that's how I've led my life up until this point in terms of whatever economic things that come my way with business or opportunities may be like dismantled. I always kind of show up in a way that I walk by faith and not by sight. In 2020, I had the opportunity to visit Tanzania, and Tanzania is the origin where Tanzanite is. And I remember walking into this space and I saw this necklace, and it was the continent of Africa with the Tanzanite stone in the middle. And I cherished that piece of jewelry. And I spent so much time in the water. And I think in that moment, during a time of chaos and hysteria of 2020, it was like my personal internal reset. So, love blue, love Tanzanite, and that is my gem.
How would your friends describe you?
I think a lot of people have this perception of me that I'm kind of a free spirit, but I'm actually really regimented. My friends always tell me, like, Tiffany, you're actually very traditional. You're actually very structured. You live your life in a very intentional way. And while I try to not have a plan, I am a planner. So I think that will caught people by surprise, but those who know me love that I love a good plan.
What do you do?
What do I do? So I run an art organization called Tila Studios. And Tila Studios is a reflection of my own personal experience as an artist. I am the problem that I am trying to solve. I am trying to help Black women advance their careers, not only locally and nationally, and place them at the forefront of museums and galleries and public spaces. So I create those pathways. And I start by having a gallery space where I showcase emerging Black women artists. I also run an agency where I help Black women artists get paid. That is the big thing. The creative economy is really opportunity, like there's so many opportunities for Black women, but I think oftentimes we're shielded from those. So I work with incredible brands like Sweet Green, BET, Visa, to help them get really great 5 to 6 figure contracts. And so that is really my passion, is just figuring out how Black women can scale their careers and actually have a livelihood doing what they love, and that is art. And I've been so blessed to be a Black woman artist, running an art company, making money from my art. And I just think, what if a little Black girl was out there and was like, I want to do this too? And I hope to be that example.
How did you get into this profession?
Oh man. Really in 2014, I was working in media at NBC Universal at 30 Rockefeller Plaza. And I was in a 7 year relationship that fell kind of stagnant and it plateaued. And then I was in a career where I was making a lot of money for people who didn't look like me. And I was like, if I have all these skills and talents to potentially become a VP, why can't I chart my own career for myself? So I took a risk, packed up my apartment, was in a U-Haul, and drove all the way from New York to Powder Springs, Georgia to live on a farm for 2 years. I did that, I painted, and I found out that I love using my hands to tell visual stories. I knew there were other Black women artists that were experiencing the same thing I was experiencing and wanted a community to actually scale their careers. So I started meeting Black women from 2014 to 2016. And on the onset of the 2016 election, when Trump was about to be elected, I knew Black spaces were going to be ostracized and potentially eliminated. And so I was like, what a great time to optimize Black creativity and create a public space for Black women to convene, create, and thrive together. So that was kind of the precipice of Tila.
What do you consider to be some of your biggest accomplishments so far?
Oh man, this has been a roller coaster of a journey. I would say I would start with 2016 and actually getting my first tester space in East Point. I had a flagship location right off Church Street. And I convinced the landlord to not rent to a white production TV company and take a bet on me. And in just 2 weeks, I was able to organize Tri Cities, so that's East Point, College Park, and Hateville, get the business association to vouch for a new company to host the networking event and use that as a fundraiser for my organization. We raised $5,000 that night. We exhibited 10 Black women incredible artists. And it was just a moment where people like, oh my God, we need a space like this. So I think being able to do something like that was like, wow, there's so much power in ourselves with just taking initiative and owning our voices. I think recently realizing that Black women artists need to be equitably paid, and starting my agency in 2020 and seeing us like secure a contract with Sweet Green that started out with curating 6 stores in Atlanta that launched to 13 stores nationwide. So we've done Seattle, DC, New York, and just by putting Black women in restaurants that mainly a white audience goes to. So being able to shift spaces with our voices and our talent has been great. And then I think in the recent years, landing the opportunity with BET and the BET Her Awards, um, we got the call from this really dope marketing agency and was like, BET Her is coming to Atlanta. We need sculptures for the awards. And I have this incredible artist named Alex Fovani. And I said, hey, I know you can do sculptures, but I think you can design an award for BET. We had never done that. We had never fabricated anything. And to be able to trust and believe in my intuition and positioning the right artist to do a job in under 40 days and honor people like MC Light and Masara Martin and so many incredible leaders, and to be able to be in attendance at the award show and be like, I did that. I was like, oh man, like this is dope. And for the artist who attended, and seeing her thrive in her practice now, I'm like, this is what this is all about, is like putting artists in position to win and to imagine new ways that they maybe didn't even imagine for themselves. So it's really exciting.
How has your experience been as both an artist as well as a foundation founder, as a Black woman, been in this industry?
Oh my gosh, it's been difficult. I think being a founder and also being a representative of your community that you're serving, especially as a young woman. I'm 35. And so I started this when I was 27. And so I think trying to establish trust within the community and being the same age as some of my peers or serving people that are older than me was hard. And a lot of times I realized that I had to stand in the shadow and the background of the work and realize putting the community first and not also always exhibiting my art was a sacrifice that I was going to have to make in order to be established. I think, me coming to the goat farm and having the time of 2020 to kind of really restore and renew and reflect on what my individual goals are and realizing that my voice and my hands matter. I have been sewing into myself as much as I sew into my company. So, with this first exhibition that we have here that opened on July 18th, 2024, When She Rests, She Blooms, is a testament to my personal journey of taking months of rest and restoration and finding joy in my own body and showing that and blooming into the woman that I am. That I have 5 paintings on display and 1 sold. So it's something that I'm like, wow, my voice matters, and I'm in community with other artists that I support, and that I could do this while still shining a light on my own individual talent.
What advice can you give young women of color wishing to pursue this industry?
Man, I think that's like the hardest thing, advice, because there's no one way pathway to success. I think a lot of times people look at your career and say, gosh, I want to be like her. And I say to people, I'm like, linear pathways to success don't exist. Be able to be in harmony with your own spirit and know that those no's will eventually turn into yeses. And don't be afraid to ask. Like, That's the biggest thing. You know, people like, well, don't do it because you're not ready. But who knows? Who can tell you that you're not ready besides your own individual self? So if you know yourself and you know how tenacious and ambitious that you are, go for it. And, you know, I feel like I grew really fast in a short period of time. And some people will say that like it took them a lot longer. So, you know, take advice from people, but also trust yourself and like, don't be afraid of the no's because they're going to come and then that's going to convert into a yes.
Can you tell us about a woman in your life who inspires you?
A woman in my life that inspires me is the woman that I wrote my 2014 master's thesis. So while I was living in New York, I actually went to school at Sarah Lawrence College and I studied women's history. And I studied these dynamic women in the 1960s who organized kind of private societies for themselves, and they were Black women artists. And it was Alice Dunbar, Meta Warrick Fuller, and Meta Warrick Fuller was this brilliant sculptor that lived in Philadelphia, and that she was so into her craft that she traveled to Paris, was under the tutelage of W.E. Du Bois, and was just this Renaissance woman that did sculptures and, you know, retaliation to lynching. She was just such a steward of the culture, but she was kind of erased from history. And so I felt like I saw myself in her. And I feel like this work is such a way to honor her legacy. And it was kind of like the birthplace of when I started thinking about Tila. And I think of Tila as like sowing the gardens of my mother's. And that's why we say, welcome to the garden. It is the legacy of my great grandmother Lillian, my grandmother who just passed, Patricia Ann Lott, and my mom who made this dress, who is a steward and such a believer in my company. I call her like the COO because she has so much ability to know how to help me navigate tough situations and is so honest and so truthful. So I think about the woman in my life that cultivated me and the woman that I studied, and I always try to walk in their spirit and like stand on the shoulders of my ancestors.
What would you tell a 12-year-old you?
Oh my gosh, I would tell the 12-year-old me that you always knew who you were. At 12 years old, I pitched a concept like Tila. I was a part of the Girls Inc. entrepreneurship business cohort where we wrote a business plan at like 12 years old. And I pitched an arts incubator for just Black people, Black kids in Chattanooga, Tennessee. That's where I'm from. And I won $400. So I was always an entrepreneur. I was always an artist. I was always an innovator. And I would say, like, Tiffany, you always knew who you were.
Is there anyone that you would like to shout out?
I would love to shout out my dear friend, Amani Ellis. Amani Ellis is the founder of the Creative Collective in New York. We started off as pages at NBC when I worked at 30 Rock. And seeing our paths take similar kind of growth and seeing the way she scaled an organization by working full time as a VP of Bravo and comms and took so many leaps of faith to bet on creatives of color. I see we were both so passionate about that, and to see our careers kind of intertwine and intersect, and knowing that she lives up the street now, I'm like, God, that's so dope. Do you remember us like in 2011 hustling in New York City? And now we're running these organizations that supports the creative economy in a very exciting way. I think that's really exciting.
Last question. How can our audience reach you and learn more about Tila Studios?
You know, if you know of a Black woman artist, if you know of a young artist that wants to be a budding artist one day and maybe don't have the pathway to get there, I say come to Tila. See yourself reflected on the walls. Enjoy art for you, by you. And I think that will give you a renewed sense of self, of how to move forward. And don't be afraid to put Black art on your walls. Collect our work. I think that's the biggest thing. I think we call the greats the Van Goghs, but there's us that are greats too, the Jacob Lawrences, the Micheline Thomases. And so buy our work and have that on your walls and see how that not only transforms your space, but also provides a new source of inspiration for you to even dream and think bigger. So buy art, come to the space and view art, and then I think you'll just see your life transform. We love to stay engaged with the community. So my personal Instagram is Tiffany underscore LaTrice with the number 1. And then Tila is tilastudios.com, and that's Tila studios.com. And if you follow us on Instagram, it's Tila underscore studios. And then, yeah, just DM us, email us, follow us, and we'll be sure to contact you. You can read my story on theboldmaven.com. Make sure you subscribe to the Bold Maven newsletter to gain access to their digital magazine.